Aakrit Vaish to you, all of you. I told you all that in the first month of this course, I'll have at least 3 or 4 guest entrepreneurs to talk to you about a few of the interesting sectors. And there's nothing more interesting than AI in today's context. So that's what Aakrit's going to talk about. Feel free, but we'd like to hear about your own journey as a co-founder. He's had a successful exit, sold his company to Reliance, currently works with the government of India on AI policy. There may be better words than that, but this is what we all understand around. You can see some of the awards won or the accolades won, economic forum. So you're going to have an interesting class, and it'll be as interesting as we make it out to be. And I find that usually the first question is difficult, but I'm going to rely on some of you to ask the first one, otherwise I will ask the first question. But I don't think Aakrit's going to wait till the end for a question. He's okay to being asked a question whenever you feel like. Will you start with your journey?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll first listen to his journey about his company, Haptik, which is a conversational AI company. Most of us here are undergrad students, second, third and fourth years.
Okay.
And just a show of hands, the masters and postgraduate and the IBDP and the dual degree students, so much smaller on the masters front. Yeah? Do you want to know who else? Yes, it doesn't matter.
No, let's go.
Okay. All yours. Send down quickly. Yeah, thanks. So I'm all yours.
Great. Hi, everyone. Hi, hello, good evening, thank you. Very excited to be here. I grew up in Mumbai, but I wasn't smart enough like all of you to get into IIT Bombay. So this is amazing, the fact that I get to come back and teach some of you a little bit and interact with everybody. So a couple of rules, for as we go about this session. One, I intentionally did not prepare slides because I think the best, somebody said it the other day, the best way about learning about entrepreneurship is actually doing it. So similarly, the best way to, learn about how to start a company is just asking more questions. So I don't have any slides. I'm going to talk very little about myself. My goal over here is, hopefully through my experiences, some of you will learn a little bit about what not to do while trying to build a company. Very hard to tell you what to do. I think that you'll discover yourself, but maybe what not to do. I'll introduce myself a little bit, talk about maybe just a few concepts, and then it's going to be fully conversational. Just Q&A back and forth. I can take hundreds of questions, and I'm willing to answer anything and everything that you want because, I trust everybody for the most part. And then even though we're recording it, whatever I feel that, is too sensitive, we'll cut it out later. So that's the goal. That's the goal of today. So quick introduction. My name is Aakrit Vaish. About 10, 11 years back in 2013, I founded a company called Haptik. So firstly, just show of hands, who knows or has heard about Haptik? It's not bad. Only from today's class or before? Before. Okay, before. Like just not because, okay, so great. Not bad. I mean, we did a decent job over a period of time. I started the company in 2013, 5 years after I graduated from college. Like I said, I grew up here in Mumbai, and then for college, I went to the US for my engineering. Why did I decide to go to the US? 2 reasons. One, I couldn't get into IIT. Then the second was, I just felt that I wanted to experience being somewhere abroad. Next best after IIT when I came to engineering was one of the US engineering colleges. So I went for my undergrad engineering to a college called University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, or UIUC, pretty popular for computer science. I wasn't smart enough to study computer science, but anyways, I studied industrial engineering. Fun fact about my college at UIUC, the college is very poor at branding itself, but the fun fact is, and this is where the entrepreneurship journey started, the following companies had founders from UIUC, from my college. YouTube, LinkedIn, PayPal, and anybody who's familiar with this venture firm called Andreessen Horowitz, Mark Andreessen is actually a UI/UX alum, who originally built the first browser. So the Internet Explorer, the core technology you see behind it, was built also by Mark Andreessen at UI/UX. So what used to happen was, and that's why I'm so excited to be in this group, is that when I was in my 3rd and 4th year in college, I used to end up attending a lot of sessions like these. All these guys used to come back on campus, used to talk about their journeys, used to talk about tech, internet, software, mobile. That time there was no AI. So I used to just attend and I used to listen and I used to be like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, it's so much fun, maybe one day when I want to do this. Once I graduated, so as a result, I decided to move myself to San Francisco or Silicon Valley, where all the action for tech used to be. I got a job at an early stage startup, and the reason for that is, and that's one first sort of thing maybe I want to leave you all with. There was a very interesting article the other day, about just 4 or 5 days back, which talked about how one of the best decisions you can make in your career early on, especially if you want to build a company one day, is in your first couple of years, go join another high growth early stage startup. That I thought was one of the best decisions I ever made. I think it taught me so many things about on the ground what happens in a fast growing company, the way the teams move, how the company operates, how it's very different from college or structure or even large companies or jobs, right? Just an early stage startup is a very different ball game. So I joined a company as their employee number 14. The average age of people in the company was much older, in their 30s. I was 22. It was in San Francisco. It also exposed me to Silicon Valley in general. And I worked there for 2 years. Second thing that I did, which I think has helped me a lot, which I would advise again everybody to think about, which is one of the second sort of lessons or learnings. While I was working at this startup, about 6, 8, 9 months in, I started working on my own side projects on the weekends. At 19, 20, 21, 22, you guys have all the time in the world, right? Today, at my age, which I'm not going to reveal, there is kids, there is family, there is, all of this additional headache you have to have in life. But this is the stage of life where you can use your time whatever way. So when I was 22, 23, when I was working at this startup, which was 60, 70 hours a week was this job, I used to spend an additional 30, 40 hours in nights and weekends working on side projects. One of the side projects that I built, and very few people know about this, and maybe you guys are all too young to know about this. I see some professor and I see you. So there was, back in the 90s and early 2000s, there used to be this game called the snake game on the mobile phone, right? So when I was in 2010 in San Francisco, the iPhone had just launched 2-3 years back. So one of my side projects was I built the snake game for the iPhone. And we launched it like just me and a friend who was a developer, and I was like a product manager. We built it over like a few days, and we launched it. And I remember in late 2009 during the US holiday season, that app or that game ended up ranking at number 3 on the iPhone App Store. And that was all a side project, right? So we had a job. This is what we would do at nights and weekends. And by the way, the reason we did this also was, again, this is how side projects happen. At that age, you don't think so much about money and all that, right? The reason we did this was 2 reasons. One, I was really missing the snake game. Like, I used to love this game when I was a kid in studying over here in Mumbai and all that, the Nokia phone. So I was really missing it. I said, somebody needs to have a snake game for the iPhone. And then the second was my partner, who was the coder, as part of his computer science project in college, they built a snake game. So he had built a snake game for his computer science project in 3rd year, and I was missing it. And we said, look, if nothing else, the 2 of us will use it, right? We'll see what happens after that. And that really peaked and did a lot more than we could imagine. We put ads in that game. So, this side project Again, happy to share because this is what happens, right, when you don't know what's going on. This ended up in a year generating about $250,000 for us, just in those people clicking on those ads. So that's the second thing I would, just from my experiences, right, as you're thinking about what to do, especially entrepreneurship. One, company benefited me a great deal as I was thinking about mine. And second, working on a side project alongside that just opened up the world and more importantly gave us confidence that, look, we can do something, right? Maybe this entrepreneurship thing, full-time, pursuing for the rest of the life, something can happen. So then that kicked off, right? So when by the time we had seen the snake game succeed, we said, okay, look, looks like we can do this, right? We can probably build a company, we can start a company and so on. And that's when I thought that perhaps the right place to build a company back then was India. Many reasons. One, just the growth of the country, where it was going, the potential it had, just my roots over here, wanted to be closer to home. So then I made a few trips back when I was still in SF, came back 2-3 times just to talk to people, understand what's going on. And then in 2013, we moved. And this idea of Haptik came about. Now, Haptik sort of, in its own, obviously is a very long and own journey, but this is where I'm going to use the board and try to not mess it up. So this is digressing a little bit, but this is important. There is a firm called INDIAai Lab in the US. The INDIAai Lab in the US has started, invested or incubated in more than 600 startups in the US. It's called INDIAai Lab. One of the things that they did just 2 years back is that they did an analysis of all their companies that they had invested in over all these years, the 600 companies. And they were all types, not necessarily tech, non-tech, brands, consumer, offline, doesn't matter. And they looked at and said that, okay, look, what is this, out of everything that we know, what is the single biggest factor that determines a startup success? And they asked, or rather they narrowed it down to these 5 things. And I'm going to put in any random order. So they said team, they said capital, they said market size, they said 4 timing of the business, and they said 5 the idea itself. Sorry, 1 minute. I'm going to get it. There we go. Can you all see this? Team, capital, market size, timing, and idea. So let's take a poll. What is the single biggest thing that determines a startup's success over a long period of time? Okay, I'll start. Who says team? Okay, it's a lot of people. I noticed some people started raising their hands after seeing the others. Who says capital? Okay, 1 person. You should become an investment banker. Who says market size? Okay, great. Who says timing of the idea? Yeah, probably second most. And then who says the idea itself? So the answer vehemently was timing. The single biggest determinant. And why I say this for Haptik is the following. The first product we launched in 2013 was a personal assistant chatbot that can answer any of your questions. What does that sound similar to? Haptik's journey, if this was a movie to be made or a book to be written, the tagline would say, a decade too early. Right? That was the first product we launched, a personal assistant chatbot which you can open and you can ask any question you like. And when I saw ChatGPT show up in November 2022, it was the most surreal moment of my life. Right? Haptik has been a success. Don't mark, I'm very happy with where Haptik got to, and I'm very happy with what we created, and we'll talk about what we created. But what could have been? right? It could have been, if I started this now, 2 or 3 years back or 4 years back, who knows? I mean, it could have probably been the largest company ever created from India. So the number one factor that we all concluded and what came out of all of these things was, why is this particular business and idea fit for today and now? And by now, I mean future forward, now for the next few years. We were, at our time, when we built the first product, too early to this whole idea of chatbots, personal assistant, AI. I've been working on AI for 11 years, 12 years coming up now. And plus another year of research before that, right? So I'm almost like an AI dinosaur, even though I'm not that old. So as you guys are thinking about third, like I said, third takeaway, right? As you guys are thinking about what to build, how to build, what it takes, ideas, just keep this on top of mind. Sure, everything else is also important. You need a solid team. I think that was the second, by the way, the second biggest factor that came back that in the survey was the team. And I know a lot of you obviously raised the hands on team. So team is very important. Obviously, you need money. You need to operate in a large market. And the idea, needs to be somewhat good. But just think about, like, why should it matter in today's times? And I always say this to everybody I speak to. A lot of people say that, oh my God, I'm too late to this idea. I actually think being early is worse than being late. You have a question?
Yeah. Sir, you talked about timing. Right?
Don't call me sir, call me Aakrit. That's why I don't really reveal my age.
You talked about timing right now. Can you say that market wasn't ready at that time, or like you can relate it with market size also, right?
Great question.
Both the words similar.
Yeah, so the question is, aren't timing and market size similar? Let me try to give you an example. The grocery market is a very large market, but Zepto just happened 2 years back. That's the example, right? The market size of selling groceries is a lot, but people didn't care about having 10-minute groceries, or the infrastructure wasn't in place till now, right? So similarly for us, the actual AI market or even chatbots being used were fairly large at that point. But the personal assistance of using the way people wanted and the technology in our case, right? We don't know. So ChatGPT is built on this technology called transformers. So the T in GPT is transformers, right? The transformers paper itself came out in 2018. So the tech wasn't ready to be able to provide that service. So you could have the market opportunity and the size, but maybe the specific thing you're working on is, not the right time today. But great question. Yeah, go on.
I was interested, the app you created in a college days. So the two of you made the entire app, starting with the ads, like to get the ads over the app itself. I think that would have been a challenge at that time when you were a student. So were it just the two of you, or did you scale with the team?
No, it was just two of us. It was just two of us. And by the way, that's enough. Do you know, I'm not sure how many of you have read, which I really believe in. There was recently Sam Altman said in one of his podcasts that he believes there is now going to be in the future $1 billion company being run only by one person. So when we built the Snake game, we were two of us. We were actually not in college. We had full-time jobs. So we were working, fairly hard at our startups, and we were doing this on the side. Yeah.
You talked about the time, but so how do you figure out the good time? Like, you never know, there are lots of things in the market are there, lots of data is there, manipulated data is there. So how to find out that's a good time, like market is ready for this?
There is an absolutely amazing blog post by Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, on this, which answers your question. All of you must read. It says how to get startup ideas. The blog post title is that. It's on paulgraham.com. But the whole concept or premise behind this is a lot of this comes from personal experiences or a unique insight, right? Something that you deeply have understood or care about or have learned over a period of time. So a lot of, if you think about particularly Silicon Valley or the US, a lot of college-run startups or startups that are being right out of college happen in like deep tech or tech areas, because a lot of them have been working on this technology in their college. So they learn about it, they find out how it works, they talk to professors, they do their research. That results in these companies. Or sometimes these are companies like Facebook, right? Where he was in college and he realized there should be a social network for college students. So it comes from unique insights that you have, and then, you basically, very little data is required, but more than that, you just need to talk to your customers around you, figure out whether it's possible to build it, and that should indicate the size of whether the timing is right or not. Yeah.
Sir, back in 2013, did you train your own model or did you use your API from different companies?
So we created our own model, but that time there used to be nothing called, the question is, back in 2013, did we create our own model or use API? So that time there was no open large language models. Large language models came in 2018. So that time there was no concept of LLM. We created basically our own underlying machine learning framework using natural language processing.
So you made your own architecture?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had a machine learning data science team. So we actually built the NLP, we built the machine learning, we used the data. But look, most of it back in the day was basically keyword matching. So similar to how Google works, right? So Google today. So the way Google works is you go and search, and it understands the keyword and tries to find answers. So that's pretty much similar technology that we use, because that was the technology back then, which is you write a message, we'll try and what we call intent detection. So we'll try and take out the words from that message. So let's say the message says, hey, how many students are there in IIT Bombay's entrepreneurship class? What our engine would do is it would detect students, IIT Bombay, entrepreneurship, and try to find the answers and respond back in a conversation manner. So it was sort of, different tech. And then now imagine, right, you can't have a conversation on that, right? Because each time you have to dig out keywords, detect it, match it, and then it's bound to break at some point. So transformers only happened, like I said, in 2017. Cool. So we'll move on before, as we get into more questions. I was talking, no, we were talking about Haptik, right? So I'll fast forward Haptik a little bit. So we started trying to build this app, we built this product, personal assistant chatbot, you could do what you wanted. The fourth lesson that I've had from my journey is I was too much in love with the solution and not the problem. So we kept running this app for 4 years, even though every single metric kept telling us it's not working. So to the earlier question, we used to measure lots of things, right? We used to measure response rate, accuracy rate, how well it's working. And most importantly, for a product like this, you have to measure your user engagement. User engagement is how many times do people show up in a day, in a week? Are they repeating? When you're acquiring these users, are they sticking to your app? What is their feedback? What are their reviews? What are their ratings, right? So even though we got a lot of capital, we raised about $20 million across 3 rounds, because I guess, that's the other part. I was good at storytelling and raising capital, but the metrics kept telling us that something is not working. But and this is me, this is not even my co-founder and not even anybody else in the company, was too much in love with the solution. Like I really felt that I want this to exist. And I guess that's the other sort of big takeaway I've had from that journey is that, entrepreneurs and CEOs can't be emotional beyond a certain point, right? You have to see what your numbers are telling you, what your metrics are telling you, what your teams are telling you. My team used to keep telling me for a year that, look, something doesn't feel right, the engagement numbers aren't going up, the metrics aren't going up, how are we going to make money on this? But I was the only one who kept pushing back and saying, no, we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying. So whereas there is, everybody says perseverance, but perseverance should also be thought through, right? Like if you can see that something is not working in a certain way, adjust. And that comes point number 5, which is what I did. Finally, after like a long time, when we saw that the app wasn't scaling, what happened is we started getting a lot of corporate customers, right? So a lot of these large enterprise corporate customers come to us and tell us, hey, listen, I've used your app. It's very, very nice app. Can you build this technology and build a chatbot for my website, right? So typically, if you go to a lot of websites or WhatsApp, how many of you have used like a chatbot on a website or WhatsApp for customer service? Everybody. How often has it worked? Never. Welcome to our life. So basically, we got a lot of people reach out to us and say, why don't you do this for us, where you can basically put a chatbot on our website and we can start answering customer support queries. And that's the direction that Haptik took. And that's when sort of the fifth big takeaway happened for me, where we, as a company, pivoted from building a consumer app to building a B2B service, where other companies can then put their chatbots on top of their website and start using them for customer service. Then one thing led to the other. WhatsApp opened up their business communication. So what that meant is that as a company, you could now create your chatbot on WhatsApp itself. So we became a large partner with WhatsApp, and then we started building these chatbots on WhatsApp for a lot of brands. And I guess our biggest breakthrough came in COVID, funnily, in 2020. And this was just a crazy story where COVID happened, and essentially the government of India wanted a way in which they can engage with citizens to tell them about like what are the myths with COVID, how does it work, what should we be careful of, and generally communicate with citizens. So they reached out to Facebook or Meta at that time to say, hey, listen, we want a WhatsApp chatbot where people can ask questions around COVID, symptoms, and so on. This was the first, second week of March. So Facebook reached out to us to say that, look, you guys know how to build this stuff. Can you do it for us, or can you do it for the government? And typically these things take 3 or 4 months to eventually go out, take live, and so on. So we said, okay, look, when do you want it by? They said in 3 days. So we said, okay, sure. I mean, this seems like a large project. This seems like government will benefit from it. All citizens will benefit. Imagine you can go to WhatsApp and just ask, about various COVID-related queries. So 15 people from our engineering team locked themselves in the office and in homes for 72 hours. I think they would have slept like 4 to 6 hours in those 72 hours to build this entire chatbot, which became the official COVID helpline for the government of India. It was called MyGov Corona Help Desk, and was launched in the last week of March 2020. And within 3 weeks, more than 100 million people in India had used this for all types of questions, clarifications, and so on. And the biggest point came actually was much later when the vaccinations happened. This became the same place where you could get your vaccination certificate. So you could easily message on WhatsApp and say, I want my vaccination certificate, and you would get it back. And then few weeks later, PM Modi went on TV and flashed this number to everybody. And then our servers went down. Because at one single instance, we had about 65 million hits, like in like a minute span of few minutes. And then we had to sort of, work overnight to revive that. So that became like a peak point of this entire B2B service, and even till today, that's recognized actually as the world's largest WhatsApp chatbot ever built. So it's something that we feel greatly proud of, and something that became like a big moment in our company's history. I'll pause here for questions before moving on. Yeah.
Hi, Aakrit. I'm staying at your stories daily article. So the thing I want to ask you, when you were a student, when you joined the startup Ferrari, which was acquired by you have, I think, got
280 million, yeah. I didn't get much, but.
So the thing is, why don't you join Amazon, Google, Apple? Why do you choose a startup? And if so, why? I think we could have easily got into any company like Apple. So why you choose a specific startup? And what is the thing you saw in them? Like they become like a very big thing. So how did you make the choice actually?
Yeah, it's a great question. Very good question. The question is, why did I choose to join a startup versus I could have joined Amazon or Apple? Back to my story, like I told you in third, fourth year college, I became pretty clear I want to one day build my own company. Like I thought the only way I want to see my life is entrepreneurship. That was the only way I could imagine my life. So as a result, I said that, look, what am I going to join one of these big companies and do, right? I mean, sure, I'll learn like something and probably I'll make a lot of money in the US at that point. But it felt like I would learn a lot more by joining something very early, because I always say that Flurry for me was an MBA and PhD combined in startups, because I was fortunate to be around a very seasoned founding team. The company had already raised a lot of money by the time I had joined, and it allowed me to on the ground, like I used to sit next to my founder CEO who had built like 4 startups before that. So right next to him, I got to learn what it takes to build a company, all the different aspects, the many, many lows and the very few highs that it requires to build a company like this. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything else, right? So if the interest of the heart tells you that you want to one day go build a company, no better place to learn than an early stage company. How did I or they choose them? I read about them somewhere in some news article. I really liked what they were doing. I thought it was very cool. I heard about them from a friend also. And then the funny story of how I actually met them is, I wrote to them on email, but nobody was responding back to me. Then I wrote to them on LinkedIn and nobody was responding back to me. And then I saw that in San Francisco, they were hosting some event, which I did not get invited to. But I just showed up at the event. So the event was happening in the main hotel and I was down in the lobby. And I knew the 2 or 3 people that I wanted to meet who are the key people. So the moment sort of they showed up, I literally just talked them and I just said, can you wait a second? I want to tell you about what I do. They gave me their card and then I met them and that's how it happened. Yeah. You want to scream?
Yeah.
Let's test your screaming.
Yeah, sure. So my question is, you're having a comfortable life back in US, right? Around 2013. So you could have started a new company there itself. And why would you want to come back and have the struggle, like the infrastructure or whatever for the startup is not that easy in India, is what I believe. Then why would you want to come back, and why did you come back and start here? Or you could have tried somewhere else as well, like Singapore or somewhere. So why in India?
My friends tell me I hate being comfortable. And that's a problem. I wouldn't recommend it for others. It's a disease, I think. Because even now, I'm not sure if you noticed my intro, but Haptik got acquired and I was with the company for some time, and then, the normal thing to do for normal people would be you've done one company, sold it, great, now go build a second company. I went and joined the government. That doesn't make any sense. I still wonder why. So I don't have a good answer, honestly, to your question, except that...
That's a brilliant answer. I honestly think that's a brilliant answer. So reading between lines is what the class needs to do. I'm serious when I say that.
Yeah, sure.
But entrepreneurs are not comfortable. It's a good disease to have.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what I have seen with most people around me as well. I think that, look, entrepreneurship is not... Somebody told me this 15 years back. I didn't believe them. But now I totally believe them now that I'm on this side. The worst reason to do entrepreneurship or build a company is for money. You will always be dissatisfied, right? Because it's a lot of pain, lot of sweat. To your question is that if you want to be comfortable, there's 19 other ways to be comfortable. Entrepreneurship is the worst, I think it's just that maybe from where I come and what I've been doing and college, all these things just taught me to be a place where I don't like being comfortable, right? I always like to push myself and challenge myself to things that may seem very odd, right? Somebody the other day, I was talking to a fellow founder of mine, very popular company, very popular founder. You all will know him, but I will not say his name. Where, he told me something, what's the fun in life? There's no drama. And I think that's what you'll find amongst most founders and entrepreneurs, where you like risk taking, you want to be uncomfortable, you want to challenge yourself. Because if life was to be linear, then I would just join Amazon, right? But if you want life to be up and down and eventually really up at some point, then that's what, founders or entrepreneurship, I guess, is for. So yeah, so I sometimes think, by the way, I sometimes also think about it along with the decade too early. Like, imagine if I was doing AI in the US right now. You're absolutely right. But the flip side of me, by the way, when I started transitioning out of Haptik, I realized, imagine I could be doing AI in the US. I realized, listen, somebody needs to solve AI in India. And maybe one of the only ways to do it is from inside the government, which is when I went and joined the government to say, look, let me build the AI mission for India here. Yeah, so I guess it's one way to answer the question. Yeah.
So how did you come up with this idea? Was there any customer pain point which you saw or any personal incidents?
On Haptik? Yeah, great question. So the startup that I was working for, Flurry, I think he mentioned. So what we used to do was, we used to basically provide a software for other mobile apps. So let's say you are making a mobile, let's say you're an Instagram. I'm an Instagram app developer. You would use our software to track analytics. How many people opened the app, what they did. This is back in the day. One of our big customers back in the day was this small app called WhatsApp. Okay. So WhatsApp was my customer, and I used to talk to WhatsApp all the time. So not talk to my app, like people working at WhatsApp. Yeah. I used to talk to people working at WhatsApp all the time. So, when I was there at Flurry, I noticed that this engagement numbers and usage of WhatsApp is just like crazy. This is 13 years back. 14, it's been way too long. 2010, so almost 15 years back. 15 years back, the WhatsApp usage, now everybody uses it, but that time it wasn't that popular, right? So it was like crazy, this app was just blowing up. So then I started thinking, look, there's something here. This whole messaging chat, there is something over here. So I said, okay, look, we should build a product in this sort of, territory. And then my founder and I sort of brainstormed a little bit and said that, look, just like there is an app for me to talk to you, there should also be an app for me to talk to an AI, to ask questions about, could be businesses, could be customers, could be general information, could be anything, right? And then we spoke to about 100 users, and everybody said, oh, it's a great idea, I love it, we would love to have like an assistant. And that's how we built it. So, yeah, I forgot that WhatsApp nugget. You can scream, I think, William.
I'm student at IIT Bombay, and first of all, thank you for your product, which I use during the day.
Great, for vaccination? Vaccination certificate? Okay, yeah. Every time I used to when I used to land at the airport and used to check my vaccination, I used to WhatsApp it.
And can you please say a single struggle that you feel after overcoming it, you really feel yes, we did it?
Single struggle?
Yeah, it seems like after overcoming it.
It's very difficult because every day is a struggle only. It's kind of related to your earlier question. I don't know whether it is again me or most other people I see around me as founders, but I think, day on day or year on year, I continuously feel more dissatisfied rather than satisfied. Because I feel like there's so much to do and now I'm running out of time. There's still so much to do and so much to accomplish, and now with AI exploding, there's this desire to do so much. So that really is the biggest struggle that one faces with yourself. More specifically, if you want some stories, and these are all like stories from the war trenches. So I'll tell you one. Actually, there are many struggles, but I'll tell you 2, 3 interesting stories, which all entrepreneurs have all of these funny stories. So we had raised our Series A. So we had raised a Series A, and the company was running. And that's when we did the pivot. I told you, right? We converted from that personal assistant app to becoming a B2B app. And then we went out trying to raise money for the next round, Series B round. And we started the process in Jan, and I had money in the company till October. So I had 10 months when I started the process. Actually started in March, so I had about 7 months of money in the bank left. And we were burning money. AI and all this stuff cost a lot of money even back then, right? So we were burning money quite a bit. So we had 7 months of money left. We went out trying to raise. Because we were in the middle of this pivot, we actually did not get many people say okay to us. April happened, May happened, and then we're down to June, and we were talking to this one fund very deeply, right? One of India's top 5 funds back then. We were very deeply talking to them for like a $20-25 million investment in Haptik. We met them 7 or 8 times, met everybody at their fund. Last meeting that we had with them, they basically told us that, look, this is great, and we'll sort of come back to you. Looks like all is good. Now we'll come back to you on how much and terms and this and that. So we said, okay, good. Now I'll pause here and tell you a parallel track happening in my life. This was also the time when I was roughly 30, and my girlfriend and I had been dating for 2 years. So the girlfriend's parents were like, "Kya plan hai life mein?" So we said, yeah, okay, it's I guess high time, otherwise she'll leave me. So maybe we should think about getting married. So this is the same time I started talking to her parents and her about planning for marriage. So this also was happening at the same time. This fund that we were talking to, it was all almost done. And these were the last 1 or 2 funds left. Everybody else we had spoken to. So I was pretty confident we'll do it. I was in Bangalore for meeting another investor for a pitch. Right before I was entering, I still remember the scene. Right before I was entering their office on the steps, I got a call from this first fund who was about to commit to us. And they basically said no. Right? They basically said that these funds make up some story, God knows what. Kuch hua, ye hua, something happened, or whatever. They said no. And I remember instead of entering that other meeting, I just sat down on the steps. And I just sat down on the steps and I said, what am I going to do now? We have exhausted all our options. And also I have to get married, and I don't think this marriage may happen. Because obviously any parents, both sides would care about some level of stability, because this company may actually not survive beyond a certain point. All the way back on the flight, I had no idea what to do. Came back, we had no idea. I think for a few weeks we were just like running around, figuring out, don't know what to do. And then through a series of random coincidences, I ended up running into another investor who basically was this company called Times of India or Times Internet. So Times of India is a newspaper, and then the digital arm is called Times Internet. And we met them through a friend. And they're not a typical VC fund, right? So you wouldn't assume that they would fund us in a VC style, but they were interested in what we were building. They were interested in what we were doing. So we said, okay, look, August happened. Now we have 2 months of money left. I can't even tell them that we don't have 2 months of money left, because if I tell them I have 2 months of money left, then they'll negotiate the hell out of me and they'll give me like very poor terms. So we have to keep that going. August last week, I go and meet my girlfriend's parents for the first time. Right? So that's happening in parallel while we are talking about this. Now we have 60 days of money left, right? And it's still going on and on and on. Then my to-be father-in-law asks me, so Haptik ka kya ho raha hai, and all that and this and that. And we said, no, we're getting an investment offer from Times of India. So then he kept asking me, when is that offer coming? My father never asked me, but he kept asking me. Then the offer came in September last week. Right? So term sheet came, 30 days of money left. Then we had to negotiate the offer back and forth, because I still didn't want to sign. We signed the term sheet on October 14th. Just so you know, the way it works is they give you an offer and a term sheet, and then they start their diligence to finally give you the money. Right? So it takes a process between initial offer to final money. So the initial offer came. And then 4 days later, I called him up and said, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I have no money after this month. So can you wire the funds in the next 2 weeks? So they said, no, we can't do that, because we have to go through the full exercise and diligence, everything, end to end. So only once diligence finishes. So I said, okay, look, what do we do in the meantime? They said, okay, we'll give you a loan. Right? So we'll give you a temporary loan for some time so that you can keep running the company, and then we'll settle it later. So we said, okay. So that loan they gave for 3 months, November, December, Jan. Because assumption was 3 months, within 3 months we'll finish the process. Now for combination of reasons, which I will not bore you with, we didn't finish the process in 3 months. And April is my wedding. Right? So at least that offer sealed my wedding. That happened. But April is my wedding. And January was supposed to finish, but they didn't. The process didn't finish. So now 2 months left to my wedding and the company's out of money. That's when me and my co-founder called up all our friends in the US, in India, and told them we need money for 3 months. We already have a term sheet, we already have an offer. This process is taking some time. Just 2 months of money that we need X amount of money. I think it was something like maybe $2 million, give and take. Actually, no less, it was not 2 million. I think it was about $1 million, 7, 8 crores. And we called up like 10, 11 friends. And obviously put in whatever money we had. So 2 months before, on one side I have to pay for my wedding, on the other side I'm out of money. So we put in all the money we had, we called everybody up. So they gave us a line, so everybody chipped in little. One guy gave 5 lakhs, one guy gave a little bit more, and then we had 2 months of salaries to pay. And by the way, I think reading between the lines what she said, don't miss the part that through all of this we have to paint the most positive picture to our employees. Right? Every day in the office, they should not know any of this because then that will freak them out even more. So process continued, and like the movie goes, my wedding was on April 8th, and the money from Times India hit the bank on April 6th. 2 days before I reached my wedding destination, in the bus I landed from the airport, and I'm coordinating with my accountant ki paisa aaya ki nahi. And that's when the money came. I switched off my phone for a few days, got married, and I guess the rest is history. So, yeah. So that's the story of. That's one story of struggle. There's 7 or 8 more like this. But somebody's been raising a hand over there for a while. Great. I'll give you an exact playbook. Step by step. First step, think about an idea or a space that you enjoy. Okay, it could be I love AI. It could be I really like that everything gets delivered in 10 minutes. It could be, I like watching movies. It could be I like watching content. It could be, I love, building software. I love building rockets. I love building spaceships. It could be anything which is very close to your heart. You just like doing it. And I'm guessing you'll at least have 2, 3 interests. You're all fairly intellectual people who'll have enough interests in life. So I'm guessing that you'll have 2, 3 interests. List them down. Then map them to what I would call specifically mid-tier startups. So mid-tier startups basically mean not too early, not too late. Too early startup means, it's a very unorganized. They don't have nothing process, very big struggle. Sometimes they're struggling for capital and so on, right? Too late and too big a startup means a corporate. Then you're lost. Mid-tier is basically roughly between employee strength of 30 to 100, right? And they've usually raised Series A, right? So maybe Series A round plus, Series A, B, 30 to 100 people. So take your interests, map it to these companies, mid-tier. If once this is done, you'll be probably not left with a shortlist of more than 10. And do what I did with Flurry, stock them down, right? Go find wherever they are. I mean, it's not easy. In fact, in India, it's even easier. All these founders love speaking at conferences. They're out all the time. Go to one of them, enter, don't even buy a pass, just wait in the hotel lobby. Stalk them, find them, saying, I really want to work for you. Email them, WhatsApp them. I don't think it's very hard to find my number, by the way, these days anymore. I get scared about that. So many WhatsApp groups, so many public information. It's not very hard to find somebody's number. And just go after it and hit them all, 10 of them up, and then hopefully one of them will land. Yeah, question next to you.
So that was about identifying the startups with a high growth. Now, how does one determine if they are made for startups? If they possess the qualities. Now we all like to think that, oh, I am a risk taker, but what are the essential things that we need to introspect within to understand if we are made for something like that?
If you are made for that?
Just say they or we.
Like introspect that you are made for building a startup?
Working in one.
Working in one. Okay, working in one or building one?
Working in one.
Okay, working one. Okay, good question. You know, honestly, working in a startup is not, I mean, it's not too much of an introspection in the sense it's still a job. It'll teach you a lot, it'll make you learn a lot. But look, it should be important that you should think about what the goal of that is. Like, is the goal of that to start your own company? Then that's great. Is the goal of that to grow up a corporate ladder? I don't know. Then maybe there are a lot of other options. Then you should evaluate that with other corporate offers like a Meta, Amazon and others. So I think that's the difference. But otherwise, working in a high growth, early stage startup, you know, as long as you love fast paced action, hustle, stories like I told you, kabhi paisa hai, kabhi nahi hai, you know, those kind of things, then it's fun.
Yeah, if possible, can you please throw some light on why you made Haptik to be acquired or?
Yeah, great question. And this is the part we may need to cut out from the video. Yeah, so fantastic question. And let's talk about that story. I was thinking of forgetting one aspect, which is the big aspect. So we pivoted as a business, we raised money and we were going fine. And then, you know, this is super important to understand. And I feel this deeply now. You know, the business was growing well. We were doing a few $1 million in revenue, selling to clients and so on. And, you know, it kept biting me again and again that, is this what my life is going to be for the next 30 years? Do remember that I started out with a different problem. I wanted to build like this ChatGPT type version and ended up becoming a product that I was going door to door selling to large corporate customers, right? When I was evaluating what my life was becoming, it wasn't the life I chose for myself, because the problem I was solving was not what I started with. And I wasn't anymore as much in love with this new problem and this new pivot, which is why partly I was so against the pivot for so many years, right? But once we pivoted, it did well. So I was liking it, but I wasn't loving it, right? And then I really asked myself this question, that is this what I want to do? And the answer was clearly no. I just didn't feel like I imagined my life building that product and that software for those customers. That's not what I had started out solving. Back to the earlier point, right? I like to do stuff that I love, that makes me uncomfortable, that keeps me pushing. This wasn't doing that. So we started thinking about our next round, and that's when what I thought was that, look, as we're thinking about this next round, if we get opportunities for a large strategic acquisition or an offer, we'd be open to it. The way this happened is that along with our prospective new investors, we were pitching to a lot of funds, classic funds. But then alongside that, we said, okay, look, if you want to go down this route of trying to explore strategic acquisition, who are the candidates, right? So we made a list. We made a list of about 10, 12 people across the world, India and the US. Meta, Amazon, Google were on that list. In India, Reliance, Samsung, there was 7, 8 companies were on the list. You know, we started sort of, this was right about the time where Reliance Jio had just sort of launched Jio a few years back. They had also, there was this company called Savan, which was this music app. So they had just bought Savan. And that's where I felt that now Reliance wants to build like this tech ecosystem of companies rather than just be a telco. So anyway, you know, time was passing, business was doing well. Then one day, I don't know, something happened, somewhere I was, and I was like, no, you know, I got to get done with this. This is great. This has been good, very good journey. I don't want to spend my life, this is not the problem I signed up for. And we need to find a great place from which things can scale. And that for some reason I said, whatever, call it intuition, call it calculated risk or whatever. I said, according to me, in this situation today, in what we are building, there's only one buyer in the market and it's Reliance. Right? So I just felt it for some reason that they are building this tech ecosystem. There's a lot that they are doing. As an AI company, this could be very interesting for them, and this we could scale for many, many years. Now is when, by the way, the part starts getting cut out from the recording. So I said this is the right company for a company like Haptik, and also it feels like to me that they are in that zone or mood where they will pay a good price. So then the next item was, this reminded me back of the Flurry days, how do I find them? And who do I find? How do I get into the places? You'll notice this, I think, trait repeatedly about me, and I think in general, if you're being an entrepreneur, that you're just super perseverant, like you figure out something or the other. So the way I figured this out was I made a map and a web key. I'll go from here, go from here, go from there. And then I was at an event by design, like I wanted to be at that event, where there was an executive from one of the Reliance Group companies there. Now here's the fun fact, which I think I've not spoken about this publicly, but the reason I was there and the reason I wanted to talk to him was because he was my wife's ex-boss. So I knew that if I talked to him with my wife's context, he'll like me more as a friend than anybody else. So I went up to him and I said, oh, you used to, whatever. Oh my God, how is she? How are you? This, that, whatever. I said, let's grab a coffee. So we got a coffee. And then I never said that this is what we want to do. I just said, this is what we're doing. Here's what we're up to. And I just said that, look, I would love to talk to Reliance as a customer. We are building a chatbot product, right? So I would love to talk to them if they want to put this here. And I would love to, of course, talk to you also, your business also. He said, no, absolutely. Please come talk to my team, and then I'll introduce you to people within Reliance. And then, this is like sort of that subtle, how many of you play chess here? So you are familiar, right? This is a game of chess. Entrepreneurship and running a company is a game of chess after a certain point, right? So you wait for the move. So I wanted him to ask, are you looking at this as only a customer, or do you want more? Rather than me saying it. And I kept trying to make my move so that he can make his move without saying it in as many words. So I kept saying, we're growing this much. Oh yeah, by the way, I was talking to this person thinking about capital raise. I kept putting these things in, which made him ask me the question, would you be open to do more with Reliance? And my answer, again, in the typical move was, I've not really thought about it. But open to a conversation. Right? And that led to the trigger. He said, okay, look, if you're open to the conversation, why don't I connect you? We basically created a brief about Haptik. We sent it to him. He sent it to the senior management at Reliance and everybody. And then I got a call, the senior management, this is all I was told, the senior management Reliance wants to meet you. So we thought it'll be a bunch of CEOs, execs, and so on, or whatever. And so we went prepared with a full spiel of our demo, of our deck, and our product, and all of that. We're waiting in a meeting room in Reliance Corporate Park, and Akash Ambani enters the room. And he's like, hi, I'm Akash. I said, I didn't really know who you were, but anyway. So, he enters the room, and then we clearly know that, look, this is now a serious conversation. They're not messing around. We weren't told who we're meeting, but Akash enters the room. And then another 5-6 people of pretty much the management, family, all the other folks enter the room. We have a 1-hour conversation in which 45 minutes they are talking. All about Reliance, what they are doing, what they want to do, how big they want to make it. Like, it feels like they are pitching to us. They barely gave us a chance to talk. We had all this stuff prepared. We didn't open our laptop. Me and my co-founder were just sitting over there listening. Then they basically said that, okay, look, great, what do you guys want to do? So we said that, look, we want to run this business, we want to scale this business, we're looking for a strategic partner, we're looking for somebody to work with. Honestly, all the right things that, again, they want to hear, and all the right things that I think made sense in that moment as well. They said, okay, look, great. We'd love to, do something. We'd love to sort of work this out. This was a Wednesday. This was Ganesh Chaturthi week, I remember. This was Wednesday. They said, why don't you come over on Saturday and let's close this. So we said, okay, fine. What do you need? They said, we'll come back to you. The next day, the team came back. They asked us for a bunch of diligence material, financials, this, that, all that. We went on a Saturday, we met them and they said, okay, great. So what do you think is the value of the company is? And I had some numbers in the back of my mind. We said some things up and down, this and that, whatever. We had raised about $25 million. We were doing about $2 million in revenue. And it's obviously public news. I think within a 40-minute conversation, we shook hands on a $100 million deal for them to basically buy the company. They moved like very fast in 4 days. No banker, no middleman, nothing. 700 crores was the final amount. And everybody, investors were happy. Employees, our employees made well. We were happy, we were fortunate. And then the only condition was, which was absolutely fair because they were paying a very big premium, right? For a 2 million company, 100 million. The only condition was, which I was totally okay with, that spend some time with us and build the business. Don't leave in 1-2 years, right? So they wanted us to spend some time. So for 3 years after that, I fully ran the business with them. And then 2 years more, I was sort of helping, consult and overseeing it. And then, last year I sort of completely left and, started my role at the government of India. So that's the story. You had a question.
What are your insights on how to spend capital?
What are my insights on?
How to spend capital?
How to spend capital. My insights on how to spend capital is don't spend it.
I'm going to take a couple more.
Sure.
And then I would like to speak about what you currently do.
Of course.
And about the AI landscape. So
Sure.
I saw a couple of hands here.
So maybe let me quickly answer the question. So look, I think the worst thing that's happened in the last 10 years in our startup ecosystem is this notion of burn and this notion of valuation, right? Businesses were built not because we spent money, but because you built it very frugally. And entrepreneurs ended up owning a large percentage of the companies for a long time. Today, if you think about it, most entrepreneurs, by the time they're unicorns, they own 5, 10%, 15% of the companies. And that's because there's overspent. So one of the things I would recommend is, learn a little bit from the traditional businesses in India of how well they actually frugally run their business. Yeah.
So like when you thought to sell Haptik, so your co-founders were with you on the same page or you need to convince them? What was it?
So fantastic question. God, what a journey it's been. I completely forgot to talk about my co-founder and my relationship with him. I'll quickly touch upon all of that. So my co-founder Swapan, who was the CTO of the company, we met in college 21 years back. In first year of college. I was 18, he was 17. He was a year younger. He got like some fast track admission, I don't know how. So we met 21 years back while partying in college. He was the person I built the snake game with. When COVID happened, he was pregnant with their first baby. They lived alone in Bombay. They didn't have any place. They stayed at my house for 2.5 months, him and his wife. So this wasn't just a co-founder, right? This was basically a brother. I'm an only child, by the way. So this is the closest that I've had to a sibling. And the trust between us is blind. We would have our disagreements on operational matters always, right? This person, that person, how to run this business, why didn't you finish your deadline? That's good. That's great. We used to fight a lot. But when it came to strategic alignment, it was just blind faith. And I think, here's something I'm going to say which not many people will appreciate and understand. My dad used to tell me this, and I completely agree with him. Whether it's a company, a family, or a government, it's very important to have one leader. I think the great part about Swapan was he recognized that I am that person. Even though we are equal shareholders, always been equal. 50-50 from day one till whenever we did it. But he always recognized that when it came to finally taking the call, for whatever reason, it was me. And that itself was a big, big decision, right? So when you're starting out, make this very clear amongst your, what is your role, what is my role, who is CEO? Because ultimately, whoever is CEO, the buck starts and stops with him or her. So
you have been in this startup journey for over a decade now. So with all your experiences and all the things you knew, if you were to start a new venture today, what different approach will you take from the one you took for Haptik?
Oh God, everything different. Actually, you know, sometimes you overthink. Like, unfortunately, my problem is now I know too much. Like, I wish I was back to your age and didn't know anything and I could just do whatever, right? Sometimes it's a little easier. But maybe one or two things I would do different is, I'll be very specific rather than just giving random gyan. One is, you know, particularly in India, I don't think we realize how much some of the back office effort takes. Things like finance, things like HR, things like compliance. We didn't hire early enough for those roles. And my strong suggestion to every entrepreneur today is, the moment you start and let's say raise a little bit of capital, there are many outsourced people available now to do this work. Don't do it yourself. It's a lot of tedious effort in India. So one just very practical, tactical thing I would say, I would do that. Second, I would hire very slowly. I think we're always in this, we got money, now let's build a company, let's hire. You know, I think like I would hire only if it's like, okay, listen, things are breaking and we need somebody to come and do this. So I would hire much slower. And third, you know, I think I would wait as long as it takes for that product market fit moment to arrive and then scale. Sometimes what happens is that we're in a rush to like grow fast. But I think startups are a little bit like, not like a linear curve, they're a little bit like, they'll go like this and suddenly there'll be an inflection point and they'll grow very fast, right? So I would wait for that point to take off.
Hi, I'm Khushi, and I just wanted to ask, you mentioned initially that for your app, you monitor a lot of metrics to measure your customer engagement. So my question is, how exactly do you decide on such metrics? Because you could use data science and get the factors, or it's across different fields to monitor.
You know, it's a great question. There was something that somebody wrote the other day which was beautiful, which is choosing what you are going to measure is more important than measuring it. So deciding that what are the right metrics for your business to measure is really important. It requires just very first principles, intellectual thinking, that okay, look, is this number important or that number important, and make that the North Star for the entire company. In terms of how to get it now, it's very easy, right? If it's a digital product, there are analytics tools available everywhere that you can get it. Even for offline companies, there's like enough sort of products and tools available where you can get these numbers. But spend a lot of time deciding on what you want to measure. And that's very different. So your question on, is there something common for every business? I guess the only thing common for every business is revenue, profit and loss. The rest, everything is different. We have time for what, 1-2 more questions?
Go ahead. I'm going to stop.
Okay, yeah, cool, great. Let's keep this going.
No, we have time till 7.
I'll talk about the AIs of the last 5 minutes, yeah.
Hello, my question was, after that we put all the hard work into making the startup, how much does the name of that company or our product matter in the market? As we all know that Toyota rebadged...
So much, depending on the stage. If you're an early stage startup, it doesn't matter. You can keep changing your name every week if you like. Keep experimenting, keep figuring out. Zepto was called Kirana Cart, I think, before. Ola was Ola only. I don't know. All these companies keep changing. We fortunately stuck around with Haptik for whatever reason. But when you're later stage, it's a much bigger cost, right? Because then you have to educate the market again about your brand and name. So then it's a lot more expensive. Yeah. You want to up either angle?
Right in the front. First.
So when you are not sure like, what was the pivot, but you have a team. So how do you engage your team when you, as founder, are not sure where you are looking this team to go? Because 1 month or 2 months you try to figure it out. So what did the team do back then? How did you engage your entire team there?
Experiments, right? So what we did was we spun out multiple teams and told them, do whatever you want. Not whatever you want, but experiment across these problems. So I'm just remembering all the crazy things we've done. As part of that, there was an app that we launched which was called Rambo. Here's what Rambo did. Rambo spoke like an Avenger as a chatbot and helped you set to-do lists and reminders. So it would talk like an Avenger, and we made a stand-up comedian write the data script for it. But it would help you solve your to-do list and reminders. So you would say that, remind me about this, and it would come back to you like an Avenger talking in a very funny way. So for example, we built a product like that. Now don't ask me why we did it, but somebody in the company thought that's a good idea to do. So I think during that period, you keep encouraging creativity and keep allowing the team to do a lot of experiments, and then something will hit.
I have one more question. Like for the initial stage, how do you get, like you have to get people on board, you have nothing to get, accept the vision, what you see the company to go forward. So how do you incentivize those people? Because maybe monetary might not be the only one. Might the percentage, you give them percentage, or what do you give them at the initial stage when you just have an idea and you believe that idea will be successful, except for the vision?
Nothing. It's only the vision and you that they have to believe in. No, honestly, I mean, if you have capital, you can deploy some ESOP and give them ESOP, and you can give them some cash. If you don't have capital, it's just you, and you have to be a great salesperson. There was no founder I've met who was not a great salesperson, even if they don't do sales, because you're always selling to your employees, you're always selling to your investors, you're always selling to somebody or the other. So it's just sheer perseverance. I think small things we did, get a lot of interns. I think that helps a lot. I think get people who are, to the earlier question, hungry about learning at startups. That helps a lot. Get your friends. I think that's the biggest one that people miss. Because I lived in the US for so long, working and stuff, I actually didn't have many more friends left when I came back. So that was harder for me. But, look around this class, find 3-4 people who, will get excited about it. I think so many companies, Ola, Bhavesh is from IIT Bombay, right? Bhavesh and I were chatting just last week, and, this first few employees of Ola were all his batchmates and friends and juniors and stuff like that. They have some level of trust in you, right? So.
I think there is a lot of pride with which Aakrit said he was employee number 14 at the company. At Microsoft, he'll be employee number 145,000 or maybe even more. So there is something inherently about a startup that makes people like you want to engage. And of course, everything else that Aakrit said.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah?
So
No, sorry.
Alright, so going back in the story where you had pivoted and now you're about to decide whether you want to sell the company, Haptik. And you had found out of the problem that you are doing right now, but you still had the problem that you were doing. Why not switch back then? You have the finances, you had everything.
Because that product did work. That product didn't, and like I said, it was too ahead of its time. The technology wasn't there to build that product.
This was at 2019, so you probably
18, the paper came out in 17-ish end. This was 18, roughly. And also, OpenAI took, what, $200 million to build? So even if not 200 million in India, I would have taken another $70-80 million of further financing to try to build that, because it would have required that level of compute, resources, and so on. And to be honest, we were too far ahead by then in our business to then switch back. I think it's very hard. See, because the business was finding success. It wasn't, and even today. So by the way, today, out of all things separate, Haptik is still done independently, as it's not an merged entity in Reliance. So it's a subsidiary that's run independently. When I left completely Haptik last year, we were at about 200 crores of business. And profitable. So I think conservatively, Haptik's valuation today is about 2,000 crores, about 300 million, right? So it's a good business, a great business. And you were too far ahead in the journey to then say, okay, listen, now I'm going to, pause and stop all of this and go back and try to raise money for something that is completely brand new, which is undiscovered. So it just, at that point didn't make sense. And we tried Rambo, didn't work. You had a question ahead? Yeah.
So, you did your bachelor's in industrial engineering and you chose to be a tech founder. So, didn't you have this question, are my background knowledge or skills sufficient? But I know you built during your initial works and career and all this. But did you ever felt I might not be able to do this? Or when you were a part of this company, what was your major role as a tech guy or as a salesman or as a manager? How do you define yourself in your company?
Founder.
Founder has this vision and some previous knowledge over it.
Everything. Janitor also. So I'll answer seriously. Everything except coding. I mean, honestly, and I can understand code now, so I had to learn it, right? I can't write code, but I had a partner who could write code. He was the tech end of the company. But as founder, it was everything: setting the vision, mission, selling, cleaning the office, hiring, finance, compliance, managing my co-founder himself. Honestly, it was all of it. And when it comes to very specific tech, so see, look, coding is not the only technical activity in a company, right? Even accounting is a technical activity. Even marketing is a technical activity. So for all of those, my job was to make sure I hire the right folks, put them in place who can then ship it. But as founder, your job is to understand a little bit of everything so you can tell when they are speaking nonsense versus not, right? So today, can I code? No, but if you tell me that this is not possible via code, I can call you out and say that's wrong. So.
And like when you were building Haptik, did you?
Sorry, to caveat that, I'll give you another example. I just met a founder recently who's trying to build a chain of dosa companies, dosa outlets, dosa khao, not AI. Right? So basically, and his background is actually he used to be an actor. So as an actor, he has shifted to saying, I want to take dosas everywhere. To do that, he went to Bangalore for 9 months and worked at a dosa place to understand the batter and the dosa and how it's made. Because, to the earlier point, he's so passionate about that problem and he really believes that there is a new age dosa company somewhere to be built. So he understood the same. When I started my company, I went, and when he built the snake game, I used to sit next to him where you look at it. Just be very close to the customer, listen to them and try to build whatever features you can for them.
Hello. My question is related to your current work with the government of India.
Yeah.
So, as you have seen that India is the only country, if I am not wrong, that has digitized 95% or scanned 95% of its population from the Aadhaar initiative. And with the advent of quantum computers and the disruption of AI and all, there is no encryption which is safe in future. Right now, they are still under construction. So what do you think government of India is planning or any further measures or policies working on so that in future our data remains safe, not being attacked by
questions there. So firstly, I'm not involved with data protection so much. I work on the AI mission. And maybe I'll answer that for a second, what the AI mission is. So the AI mission is government of India has allocated $1.5 billion, so about 11,000 crores, to go and build the sovereign AI platform of India. What that means is that we want to build our own compute and GPUs. So we'll have our own GPU and compute capacity. We also want to build our own foundation model. So we'll actually build our own LLM that can be Hindi and Indian language oriented. And then sort of many other aspects associated with that. But these are the 2 or 3 main components with the INDIAai mission. Data honestly sits a little bit outside of what I do, but there's a new law that's come out called the DPDP, the Digital Data Protection Act. I think that is the goal of that is to do what you're talking about, which is to make sure that our data as a country stays safe and stays within India. I don't think I could have prevented Sam Altman. I also know him. I've met Sam Altman now 3 times, and he's also a different animal. So one, there was no way to legally do that. So it's like filing a utility patent for a pen. You can't, and you can file for a very specific pen. And that specificity we couldn't find, honestly. And the second, filing in the US was a very expensive process, and filing in India doesn't really mean much when it comes to software.
But weren't you too early, maybe a decade ago, that it was maybe a specialized thing?
No, there were chatbots around. Maybe our personal assistant chatbot was unique, but there were many chatbots around doing customer service and other things for products. So even as much as you don't narrow it down, we couldn't, like the cost to do it in the US was way too high for an early stage company like ours. That's a good question. Next startup, I'll think about it. There's a question right behind.
We're doing a couple of classes for
Yeah.
I have to go by and look.
I'll also go back and look.
How did you validate your idea for Haptik as you were already, you said you were a decade early? So that is one question. And another question that I asked you is, how do you identify promising startup ideas? Do you have specific framework?
So I'll answer the second question first, because that I think I know a little bit. First, I don't have a good answer. So another aspect about me is about 2 years back, I launched my own venture capital fund. It's called Peer Check, P-E-R, Peer Check is cutting a check. We invest up to 3 crores in early stage companies. And and as an angel investor, I've made about 75 investments, and as a fund, we made about 20. So I have about 95 startup investments. So why I'm saying all of this is because that's why I have, through trial and error, understood the second answer to the second question a little bit better. Because when you end up investing so much, you start identifying what's the ways to do it, right? So broadly, I look for 5 things when I'm thinking about startups and ideas, especially as an investor. First is timing, because that's my personal biggest belief, that why now? To the earlier point, when I'm talking to this dosa company, why now? Because Indian food is at an all-time high. QSRs are everywhere, but there's nobody who's done a great like South Indian sort of dosa QSR. So timing sort of becomes very important. Second is team, absolutely. As an investor particularly, you want to really feel like the team is on the same wavelength as you. Side note, but I think another important factor is probably, if nothing else, the biggest takeaway I would have for you all, right? I mean, I shared that one story with you guys about that capital and then money and the marriage and all that, right? Imagine there was about 7 more like these in my entire journey. And are still are, by the way, till today. At any given point, we always did what we thought was the right thing to do. Right? We never even 1% compromise on our value system and integrity. I proudly say that, and I always tell everybody, right? You want to take a poll about me and Haptik to the entire country, every startup founder VC, everybody will have opinions about various things. We did well, we did not do well, ye tha, wo tha, lucky, whatever, doesn't matter. But I feel that 100 of 100 will say that they are fair, good people. And that for me is probably the biggest takeaway. Because in entrepreneurship, it's very tough sometimes, right? Like you'll be very tempted, but there'll be a shortcut. And those shortcuts maybe never get found. But for some reason, I don't know, call it karma, call it inherently who we are, we never did that. So that's the second thing I look in the team, which is that all said and done, are these good guys who will always do the right thing? Or are they looking to make a quick buck? Are they looking to just sort of raise a lot of money and be in newspapers and media and all of that, right? But are they genuinely? So timing, team, market size, obviously, can this be a large company? And where this can go. And when the Haptik app, I used to work at Flurry when I looked at WhatsApp, right? So I knew that people are using WhatsApp so much. So that tempted me to start. So what do you know that others don't? And then, finally, fifth is, from the time that you thought about this idea or started till now, have you exhibited some sort of hustle to get here? I don't want to hear a reason that, this happened, that happened, I didn't have money. You can do a lot with very little. I mean, we are like classic examples of that, right? So from the time that you thought about this till now, like, have you done anything that has exhibited like some sort of discomfort or hustle? So sort of 5 things.
So you finally changed to making Haptik a B2B company, but you did persevere with your initial idea for some time. So how did you keep the confidence in yourself to keep trying that even if your team wanted to change and you didn't see results as expected?
Confidence is the only thing entrepreneurs have. That's the only thing that I guess most of us or most of you, I hope, are gifted with. You have to. I mean, it's cliche, every sports book says this, every YouTube video will say this, but it really is true. You just have to believe in yourself. You have to put your foot down. There is a third eye, there is instinct, there is intuition, there is something going on where you have to believe that I know a little bit more than others because of the vantage point that I have, because of the different lens I'm seeing. Honestly, it's intuition and gut and just something that tells you. And that same thing will tell you that now is the time to pivot. Now it's not working. Or now is the time to sell. This is a good time. Or now is the time to do X or Y, right? I think it's, and every founder I've spoken to, as big and as small, I'll share maybe this is but we're done, I think, because I also have to leave. But I will end with this, and this you can cut out again, but I've reserved this special one right now for all of you, which was my first ever meeting or my first ever review that I had with Mukesh Ambani. Right? So Reliance bought our company, and then we were operating our business in COVID, basically about 1 year, somewhat into the business. So Mukesh Bhai and I had been going back and forth on email a lot, right? About our plans and this and that and what to do, what not to do, how to operate, what it takes and so on. One day basically he wrote an email saying, it's high time, I need to set up a review with you, right? So we said, okay, great. बोलने के लिए बोल रहे होंगे कहाँ? He will have time to review and all that. A day later, I got a call from his office, basically saying that, yeah, whatever boss has asked, Saturday, if you want to do the review, are you guys available at Saturday, some 6 or 7 p.m.? We said, yeah, sure. And it was COVID, so it was all on Teams, right? So we said, yeah, of course, definitely. We can't say no, I'm not available. Can you find another time? No. So we said, absolutely, whatever time, right? So that was the Thursday. This was a Thursday. And they said, okay, great. Please make sure you send a pre-read about everything that Haptik has done, what you want to do, where's the company at, all of that. This is on a Thursday morning, Saturday is the call. We said, okay, we mostly had a deck ready, we cleaned it up, made it better. Thursday late night, like some 3 a.m., we sent over the deck to him directly and his other office and all of that, saying here is the pre-read. Obviously we had no idea, we didn't think that he'll ever read the deck, it's 2 days before, but we said, okay, it's good to have and so on. Saturday the call is at 7 p.m. We joined Microsoft Teams and then one more person joins, the 3 of us are there. So me, my co-founder, and one person from his office. And it's 7 o'clock. 7:05 he joins, right? So there's only 4 of us. 7:05 he joins. And the first thing he says is, Aakrit, I'm really sorry I'm late. Right? So first impression, 5 minutes, Mukesh Ambani. Aakrit, I'm really sorry I'm late. And I said, no. I said, it's okay. I said, obviously, whatever, let's go on. He said, I've really admired the work that you guys have been doing, particularly the work you've done with COVID and this, great. And then, no hi, hello, nothing. He's like, so can you go to slide 13, please? So he had read the deck, right? Before he came into this meeting with this, for him, tiny little startup. And he went to slide 13, and he had papers in his hand, and he was rolling papers. And I could tell he's made notes on that slide. And he started talking about it, this is what you should be doing. And then for the next 2 hours, he spoke for 1 hour, 40 minutes. We spoke for the remaining 15, and the third guy, 5 minutes, yes, I will take notes. And he touched his phone once. Like he touched his phone once in that time, which was also a call. And the call he answered saying something like, Sir, ye main kar raha hu. So I can't imagine who he's saying sir to, right? So it was clearly an important call, but that's it, right? So if anybody wants to take away entrepreneurship, that's sort of what it is, right? Being humble, being in the details, being in the space at the given point, and being absolutely crazily obsessed with what you do. I guess that's it.
We really like to thank you, sir, for coming here and talking about your experience. I mean, hearing about all of your decisions as an entrepreneur, as an engineer, as a student, and as someone working at a startup, it was really inspiring, I'm sure, for all of us because we too are in a stage where, like you said, AI is exploding, the landscape is changing, there's so many ways in which we can develop ideas and go forward. And to hear how you did this back then was really insightful for me as well to hear about. I really took away a few things you talked about, what entrepreneurship should think like, what they should be like, especially about how it's never about not being comfortable ever. I found that really interesting, and it's something my father also told me once a really long time ago. So it was nice to hear that coming from more people in business. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Is that he leads the work on our team called TEAM, which is the Entrepreneurs
Association of Mumbai.
Association of Mumbai. And what they want to do, among other things, is to make Mumbai a bigger hotspot than it is today for entrepreneurs.